I thought I knew what betrayal felt like until I heard those 5 words from my girlfriend's lips. I needed a real man. Her cruel smirk as she said it, naked in our bed with another man, burned into my soul. My friends, they laughed when I told them. Took you long enough to figure out, they said. That night, I made a decision that would nuke every relationship in my life. When my phone exploded with 27 missed calls the next morning, I knew there was no going back. Some say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine was served viral. My name is Robert. I'm 42 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. A decent job, good friends, and what I believed was a rock-solid relationship with a woman I planned to spend the rest of my life with. Man, was I wrong. I met Amber at my buddy Mike's 4th of July barbecue 3 years ago. She walked in wearing a sundress and a smile that could light up the whole backyard. I remember thinking she was way out of my league, but Mike's wife Sarah insisted on introducing us. Turns out Amber had just moved to Chicago from Dallas and barely knew anyone in town. Rob's been here his whole life, Sarah told her. He knows all the best spots in the city. That night, as fireworks exploded overhead, we talked for hours. She was sharp, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. By the time the party wound down, I'd already fallen hard. When I asked for her number, the way she bit her lip and hesitated made my heart sink. Then she smiled and handed me her phone. Put your number in, she said. I'll text you. I didn't expect her to actually reach out. Women like Amber didn't usually go for guys like me. But the next morning, my phone buzzed with a message. So about those best spots in Chicago. How about showing me one tonight? Our first date was at a little jazz club downtown. I watched her eyes light up when the band started playing. How she swayed to the music like she felt every note. When I drove her home, she invited me up for coffee. I should have noticed how her apartment was barely unpacked, how there were no personal touches anywhere, just expensive furniture that looked like it came straight out of a catalog. But all I saw was her. One date turned into 3, then 10, then suddenly we were seeing each other every day. My friend seemed surprised when I brought her around. Mike pulled me aside at a poker night. Moving pretty fast with this one, aren't you? He asked, eyebrows raised. When you know, you know. I replied confidently. Just be careful, buddy, Mike said, clapping my shoulder. Something about her seems, I don't know, calculated. I brush him off. What did he know? Amber chose me. Out of all the guys she could have had, she picked me. Looking back, that should have been my first clue that something wasn't right. But like a moth to a flame, I was already too close to see the danger. The first few months with Amber were like something out of a movie. Our relationship moved at lightning speed, but I was too caught up in the rush to question it. My mornings started with her texts. My days were filled with thoughts of her, and my nights ended with her in my arms. I never felt so alive. By the 3rd month, Amber had practically moved into my place. Her clothes filled half my closet, her fancy shampoos lined my shower, and the fridge was stocked with those green juice drinks she couldn't live without. I didn't mind. Having her there made my apartment feel like a real home for the first time. I think I love you, I blurted out one night as we sat on my balcony watching the city lights. I hadn't planned to say it, but the words just came out. Amber stared at me for what felt like forever before responding. That's intense, she said, looking away. My heart sank. Too soon. She twirled her wine glass, considering. No, I just wasn't expecting it. I've been hurt before, Rob. It's hard for me to trust. I'd never hurt you. I promised, meaning every word. She looked back at me then, her eyes calculating something I couldn't read. Finally, she smiled. I love you too. When I introduced Amber to my parents over Sunday dinner, she was the picture of perfection. She complimented my mom's cooking, discussed politics with my dad, and even brought a fancy bottle of wine that impressed them both. By dessert, my mom was already dropping hints about grandchildren. She's quite a catch, Dad said when Amber stepped away to help Mom clear the dishes. Not sure what she sees in an average Joe like you, but don't screw it up. He meant it as a joke, but his words stung because I'd wondered the same thing myself. What did someone as beautiful and sophisticated as Amber see in me? I got my answer a week later when my car broke down. Without hesitation, I emptied my savings to buy a used SUV that Amber had been eyeing. You didn't have to do that, she said, but her eyes lit up as she ran her hand over the leather seats. I wanted to, I replied. Besides, now we can take that road trip you've been talking about. That weekend, We drove to Michigan to see the fall colors. At a scenic overlook, Amber finally opened up about her past. A cheating ex, family troubles, financial struggles before landing her current job. I felt honored that she trusted me enough to share her vulnerabilities. "You're different, Rob," she said, squeezing my hand. "You're a good man. Stable. Dependable." Those words made my chest swell with pride then. Only later would I realize stable and dependable were code for something else entirely. My friend Mike tried to warn me again at his son's birthday party. "You bought her a car? After 3 months? Come on, man. It's not like that," I defended. "She appreciates me for who I am." Mike just shook his head. "Just make sure she appreciates you for more than what you can give her." I dismissed his concerns as jealousy. After all, what did he know about real love? Amber chose me when she could have had anyone, and I was determined to be worthy of that choice, no matter the cost. By our first anniversary, Amber and I were totally committed. At least I thought we were. I'd fully embraced my role as her rock, her provider, her everything. When her car needed repairs, I paid without question. When she mentioned wanting to redecorate my apartment, I handed over my credit card. Her happiness became my mission in life. "You're too good to me," she'd say, kissing my cheek after another expensive dinner or shopping trip. Those words were like fuel to me. I'd do anything to keep hearing them. When Amber mentioned her parents were coming to visit from Dallas, I went all out. I deep cleaned the apartment, booked a table at the fanciest steakhouse in Chicago, and even bought a new shirt and tie for the occasion. This was my chance to show them I was worthy of their daughter. The dinner started well enough. Her father, a stern-looking man with a firm handshake, seemed to size me up immediately. "So, Robert, Amber tells us you've been very supportive," he said, emphasizing the last word in a way that made me uncomfortable. "We take care of each other," I replied, reaching for Amber's hand under the table. She squeezed mine briefly before pulling away to adjust her napkin. Her mother smiled thinly. "It's just so wonderful that Amber has found someone so established. At her age, stability is important." Throughout dinner, I noticed how her parents barely asked anything about me personally, my interests, my family, my background. Instead, they seemed fixated on my job, my apartment, my car. When the check came, her father made a half-hearted move to reach for it, but I quickly grabbed it. "Please, my treat," I insisted. The approving nod he gave Amber didn't escape my notice. After they left, I threw myself even more into being the man I thought Amber needed. When her cousin needed help with rent, I loaned the money without question. When her sister's car broke down during a visit, I paid for the repairs. I became the go-to problem solver for her entire family. One night, I overheard Amber on the phone with someone, her voice low and intimate in a way it rarely was with me anymore. I know, she whispered. "But he's so reliable. You know how hard that is to find these days." "No, not exactly exciting, but that's not what I need right now." I should have confronted her then. Instead, I pretended not to hear and doubled down on proving my worth. I started looking at rings, thinking maybe commitment was what she needed to fully invest in our relationship. When I mentioned the idea of marriage to my parents, my mother's response surprised me. "Are you sure she's the one, Robert? You seem to give so much, but what does she give back?" "She loves me, Mom. That's enough." My mother's skeptical expression said everything her words didn't. Even Mike's wife, Sarah, who had introduced us, pulled me aside at their daughter's birthday party. "Rob, as the person who set you two up, I feel responsible," she said, her eyes full of concern. "Amber's not who I thought she was. The way she talks about you when you're not around." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. Sarah hesitated. "Just be careful. I've seen how much you do for her. Make sure it goes both ways." I nodded and thanked her, but inside I was building walls around my heart, defending Amber even against the people who cared about me most. Love meant loyalty, and I was nothing if not loyal. As our relationship approached the 18-month mark, the first serious cracks began to appear. Amber started working late more often, canceling our plans with last-minute excuses. Her texts became shorter, less frequent. When we were together, she was constantly checking her phone, smiling at messages from people I'd never heard of. "Work friends," she'd explain dismissively when I asked. "Nothing interesting." I tried to ignore the growing distance between us, filling it with more gifts, more attention, more effort. When she mentioned wanting a weekend getaway, I immediately booked a luxury cabin in Wisconsin, maxing out my credit card in the process. The weekend started well enough. Amber seemed her old self again, attentive, affectionate, present. But on Saturday night, after a few glasses of wine, everything changed. I ran into your friend Mike last week, she mentioned casually, examining her manicure. At that new bar downtown. Really? He didn't mention it. I replied, surprised. Mike and I grabbed lunch just days ago. Probably because he was there with some old college buddy of yours. What was his name? Tall guy, works in finance. Derek. I suggested, my stomach tightening. Derek and I had been close once, until he moved to New York 5 years ago. I hadn't heard he was back in town. That's the one. Amber smiled, something calculating in her expression. They were very friendly. That night, I couldn't sleep. Why would Mike meet up with Derek without telling me? And why would neither of them mention seeing Amber? When we returned home, I called Mike immediately. Hey, Amber said she saw you and Derek at the rooftop last week. A long pause. Yeah, about that. Derek's been back for a month. He wanted to talk to you, but I suggested waiting. Waiting for what? I demanded. Mike sighed heavily. Rob, Derek showed me some messages. From Amber. They've been talking for months. My world tilted sideways. What are you saying? I'm saying Derek's not the only one. She's been active on dating apps, meeting people. There's a whole other life she's living when you're not around. I hung up without another word. When Amber got home that evening, I confronted her with what Mike had told me. Are you seriously believing your loser friends over me? She snapped, eyes flashing. Mike has always had it out for me. And Derek? Please. The guy would say anything to cause trouble. Show me your phone then. I challenged, heart pounding. Absolutely not. The fact that you don't trust me is the real problem here. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. 3 hours later, she returned, tearful and apologetic. I overreacted, she admitted, curling against my chest. I'm distressed from work. You know I'd never hurt you, right? And just like that, I folded. I needed, to believe her. The next day, I received a text from an unknown number. You don't know me, but I know Amber. We've been seeing each other for 2 months. She told me you two broke up. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know. When I showed Amber the message, she laughed it off. Probably one of Mike's friends trying to cause problems. Block them. I did as she suggested, but seeds of doubt had been planted. That night, I mentioned the incident to my sister during our weekly call. Rob, this isn't the first red flag, she said gently. Remember last Christmas when she disappeared for 2 hours during family dinner? Or how about her girls' trips where none of her friends post photos with her? You sound like Mike, I muttered. Maybe Mike is right, my sister replied. We're all seeing what you're refusing to see. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that the woman I loved might not be who I thought she was. But even then, I wasn't prepared for the truth. After that text message, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I started paying closer attention to Amber's behavior. The inconsistencies in her stories, the mysterious errands that took hours longer than they should have, the way she guarded her phone like it contained state secrets. One Tuesday evening, Amber called to say she was working late again. I offered to bring dinner to her office. That's sweet, but don't bother, she said quickly. We're buried in reports. I'll probably be here past midnight. No problem, I replied, trying to sound casual. Good luck with the reports. After hanging up, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone. For the first time, I decided to check where she really was. Thanks to a shared location app we'd set up months ago for safety, I could see she wasn't at her office downtown, but at an address in Lincoln Park, an upscale residential neighborhood. My heart pounding, I drove by the address, a luxury high-rise with a doorman and valet parking. I circled the block 3 times, half hoping to spot her, half dreading what I might see. On my 4th pass, I caught a glimpse of her distinctive red coat as she stepped out with a tall, well-dressed man. He had his arm around her waist, familiar in a way that made my stomach churn. I drove home in a daze. When Amber finally returned around 11 p.m., she smelled of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. How were the reports? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Brutal, she sighed, heading straight for the shower. My brain is fried. I said nothing about what I'd seen. Instead, I sent a message to the unknown number that had texted me earlier. I think you're right. Can we meet? The next day, I met Lisa at a coffee shop downtown. She was younger than I expected, nervous but determined. I've been seeing Ryan for almost a year, she explained, showing me photos of her with a man I'd seen outside the high-rise. He told me they were just roommates at first, then admitted they used to date, but were just friends now. I believed him until I found messages on his laptop. Lisa slid her phone across the table, showing screenshots of conversations between Ryan and Amber, explicit messages about their encounters, and mocking comments about their respective partners. "Look at the dates," Lisa said quietly. I scrolled through, seeing exchanges from just days ago, including one from the night of our Wisconsin getaway. "Boring cabin trip at the ATM. Wish I was with you instead." That's what I was to Amber. An ATM. When I returned home, I found Sarah, Mike's wife, waiting outside my building. "I didn't know if I should get involved," she said, her expression grim. "But after Mike told me what happened, you deserve to know everything." Sarah had been Amber's friend first, before introducing us. Now she revealed that Amber had a history of dating multiple men simultaneously, usually one for financial security and others for excitement. "She's been playing this game for years," Sarah explained. "I thought she'd changed when she met you. I'm so sorry, Rob." That night, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. A man's deep voice came through the speaker. "You don't know me, but I think we have something in common. Actually, someone in common." "Ryan," I guessed. He laughed bitterly. "No, I'm David. There are more of us than you think. And we need to talk." I met David at a bar downtown, far from anywhere Amber might run into us. Two other men joined us, Jason and Keith. All of them had been involved with Amber, their relationships overlapping with mine and each other's. "She's been running this con for years," David explained. He was older, distinguished-looking, exactly the type Amber would target. Different names sometimes, but same playbook. Find a reliable guy for stability, then keep a rotation of others for entertainment. "And financial benefits," Jason added bitterly. "She borrowed 10 grand from me for a family emergency last month." As they shared their stories, I felt physically ill. The Amber I knew, or thought I knew, had never existed. That night, I received a text from Stephanie, Amber's supposed best friend. "We need to talk. It's about Amber. It's worse than you think." We met for coffee the next morning. Stephanie looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. "Amber will kill me for telling you this, but I can't watch her do this to another good guy. She's been cheating on you since the second month. Ryan's her main side guy, but there are others." "I know about Ryan," I said flatly, "and David, Jason, and Keith." Stephanie's eyes widened. "You've been talking to them? Then you know most of it. What you don't know is that she's planning to move in with you, get engaged, then clean out your accounts before disappearing. She's done it before." My blood ran cold. Just last week, Amber had started dropping hints about finding a bigger place together. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because last time the guy tried to—" She swallowed hard. "He couldn't handle it. Hurt himself. I don't want that on my conscience again." I thanked her and left, my mind racing. That evening, I called Mike. "I need a favor," I said. "Can I borrow your cabin key? I need to check something, and Amber can't know." "Whatever you need, man," he replied, relief evident in his voice. "It's about time." The next day, I told Amber I had an overnight business trip. Instead, I parked down the street from our apartment and waited. At 7:30, a sleek black Audi pulled up. Ryan. I recognized him from the photos Lisa had shown me. I watched as Amber greeted him with a passionate kiss before leading him up to our apartment, the home I had paid for, filled with things I had bought her. I waited 30 minutes, then used my key to quietly enter. I could hear them in the bedroom. Our bedroom. My hands shaking, I took out my phone and began recording. What happened next would change everything. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, phone recording, as Amber and Ryan froze mid-embrace. Her expression morphed from shock to anger to calculation in the span of seconds. "Robert, what are you? I thought you were on a business trip," she stammered, pulling the sheet up to cover herself. Ryan, to his credit, looked genuinely surprised. "This is Robert. I thought you said he was out of town until tomorrow." "He was supposed to be," Amber hissed. I remained eerily calm, surprising even myself. "Don't stop on my account. I just wanted to confirm what I already knew." "Rob, baby, this isn't what it looks like," Amber tried, her voice taking on that sweet tone she used when she wanted something expensive. Really? Because it looks exactly like what Lisa said it would look like. At the mention of Lisa's name, Ryan's face paled. You've talked to Lisa? And David? And Jason? And Keith? I added, watching Amber's expression crumble. Quite the operation you've been running. Very impressive. Ryan scrambled for his clothes. I'm out of here. You people are insane. She's been playing us all. I told him. You might want to check your credit card statements. After Ryan bolted, Amber's demeanor changed completely. The mask slipped, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. So what if I was seeing other guys? She challenged, lighting a cigarette I didn't even know she smoked. You think you were enough for me? A mid-level office drone with a mediocre apartment and a Honda. Each word landed like a physical blow, but I held my ground. Why me then? Why waste 2 years? She laughed. A harsh, unfamiliar sound. You were reliable, predictable, easy to manage. The perfect safety net while I looked for something better. And Ryan? David? The others? Ryan has connections. David has money. Keith has a beach house. She exhaled a plume of smoke. Each served a purpose. And what was my purpose? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She looked me straight in the eyes, a smirk playing on her lips. I needed a real man for the important things, but I needed a doormat for everything else. Guess which one you were? Her cruelty was almost impressive in its totality. 2 years of my life, thousands of dollars, countless sacrifices, all for someone who saw me as nothing but a convenience. I want you out by tomorrow, I said quietly. Anything you leave behind goes in the trash. You can't just throw me out. Half this stuff is mine, she shouted, gesturing around the apartment. Check the receipts, I replied, stopping the recording and heading for the door. I paid for everything. As I walked out, she called after me, her voice suddenly desperate. Ra, wait. We can work this out. I made a mistake. But I was already gone, my key left on the counter, my heart hardened beyond repair. After leaving Amber, I drove aimlessly for hours, eventually ending up at Mike's place. Despite everything, I still couldn't fully process what had happened. I needed someone to talk to, someone who would understand. Mike opened the door, took one look at my face, and grabbed his keys. Let's get a drink. At O'Malley's, our regular bar, we found several of our friends already there for the weekly trivia night. I hadn't planned on an audience for my meltdown, but suddenly, telling the story seemed important, like making it public would somehow make it real. Amber's been cheating, I announced as I slid into the booth. With multiple guys. For most of our relationship, I expected sympathy, outrage on my behalf, the rallying of friends around a wounded comrade. What I got instead was uncomfortable silence, followed by awkward laughter. Took you long enough to figure it out, Craig snorted, taking a swig of his beer. We tried to tell you, man, Pete added with a shrug. Not our fault you wouldn't listen. I stared at them, disbelieving. You knew? All of you. Everyone knew, Scott said bluntly. She wasn't exactly subtle about it. Remember New Year's? Craig added. When she disappeared with that bartender for 45 minutes. We all saw it. Each revelation was like a fresh slap. Not only had Amber been betraying me, but my so-called friends had watched it happen and said nothing. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded, anger rising. We tried. Mike interjected. Every time any of us brought it up, you bit our heads off. Accused us of being jealous or trying to sabotage your relationship. So you just gave up? Let me keep making a fool of myself. Pete leaned forward. Look, at a certain point, a man's got to see what's right in front of his face. She was using you, and you were letting her. She was right about one thing, Scott laughed. You were kind of a doormat. A doormat. I echoed, the word burning in my throat. Come on, Craig said, his tone suddenly mocking. You paid for everything. Followed her around like a puppy. Let her walk all over you. What would you call it? These are my friends. Men I'd known for years, shared apartments with in college, stood beside at their weddings. Now they were laughing at my pain, confirming Amber's cruel assessment. She said she needed a real man, I said quietly. Guess she found them elsewhere. Can't argue with that. Scott smirked, raising his glass in a mock toast. I looked around the table at their amused faces and realized I was alone. Completely alone. The betrayal by Amber was devastating, but this casual cruelty from friends who should have had my back, cut even deeper. Without another word, I stood up and walked out, ignoring their calls to come back and lighten up. Some wounds went too deep for forgiveness, and I had just discovered my breaking point. I drove home in a fog of anger and humiliation. The twin betrayals, Amber's infidelity and my friend's mockery, had stripped away everything I thought I knew. I pulled into the liquor store on the corner, emerging with a bottle of whiskey that had gathered dust on the top shelf. Not my usual choice, but tonight wasn't a usual night. Back in my apartment, I was relieved to find Amber gone. She'd taken some of her things, but left plenty behind, a silent promise of her return. I poured 3 fingers of whiskey and downed it in one burning gulp. By midnight, the bottle was half empty, and my mind was racing with dark thoughts. Everyone had known. Everyone had laughed behind my back. For 2 years, I'd been the punchline to a joke I didn't even know was being told. I stared at my phone, scrolling through photos of Amber and me, vacations I'd paid for, gifts I'd sacrificed to buy, moments I'd cherished that now seemed poisoned. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but instead, I found myself opening our shared chat group with mutual friends. Without allowing myself to reconsider, I uploaded the video I'd taken earlier that day, Amber and Ryan caught in the act, followed by her cruel confession. I added a simple message, for those who knew and said nothing, and those who didn't know and should have been told. Judge for yourselves. I hit send, then immediately shut off my phone, not wanting to witness the immediate fallout. A strange calm settled over me as I finished the whiskey. For once, I didn't care what anyone thought. I'd spent 2 years caring too much about others' opinions, and it had cost me my dignity. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my door. My head throbbed as I stumbled to answer it, expecting Mike or maybe one of the other guys coming to lecture me about going too far. Instead, I found Amber, her eyes red and mascara streaked down her face. "How could you?" she hissed, pushing past me into the apartment. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Everyone has seen it. My boss, my parents, everyone." "Funny," I replied, my voice rough from sleep and whiskey. "That's exactly what I said to myself when I found out about you and Ryan. And David. And whoever else. This is different," she shouted. "You've ruined my reputation. My life. You ruined mine first," I said simply. I just made sure I wasn't the only one who knew about it. She lunged for me then, slapping and shoving with surprising strength. "Take it down. Call everyone and tell them it was a mistake." I caught her wrists, stopping her assault. "No." The single word seemed to deflate her. She collapsed onto the couch, suddenly looking small and pathetic. "Please, Rob," she whispered, tears flowing freely now. "I'll lose everything." "I already did," I replied, unmoved by the performance I now recognized as manipulation. "Now it's your turn." The morning after I posted the video, my phone exploded with notifications. 27 missed calls from Amber alone, plus dozens more from mutual friends, her family members, and even a few numbers I didn't recognize. The text messages ranged from outraged to sympathetic to threatening. I ignored them all, spending the day changing the locks on my apartment and boxing up the remainder of Amber's things. Each item I packed reminded me of a different lie, a different moment of manipulation. By evening, the boxes were stacked by the door, and I felt lighter than I had in years. 3 days after the video went viral within our social circle, Mike showed up at my door. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "The guys wanted me to check on you," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Things got a little heated the other night." "A little," I echoed, not inviting him in. He sighed. "Look, we were out of line. But you have to admit, you ignored a lot of warnings." "I did," I acknowledged. "But friends don't mock friends when they're down. They help them up." Mike had no answer for that. After an awkward silence, he gestured to Amber's boxes. "Need help getting rid of those?" "I've got it handled," I replied. I didn't need his help now, when it was convenient for him to offer it. The next week brought more revelations. David, one of Amber's other men, reached out to thank me. "She was starting to bleed me dry," he admitted. "Your video was a wake-up call." Lisa sent a simple message. "You did the right thing." She needed to be exposed. Even Stephanie, Amber's supposed best friend, texted, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry for not telling you sooner." She had us all fooled in different ways. When I finally checked my email, I found a message from Amber's boss, asking if I had more evidence of her deception. Apparently, Some company funds had gone missing, and my video had raised red flags about her character. I didn't respond. My fight wasn't with her employer, and I wasn't interested in causing more damage. I'd simply wanted the truth known. 6 months later, I ran into Sarah, Mike's wife, and the one who had introduced me to Amber, at a coffee shop. "How are you doing?" she asked, genuine concern in her eyes. "Better," I replied honestly. "Much better." "And the guys? Do you still talk to them?" I shook my head. "Some betrayals you can't come back from." She nodded, understanding. "For what it's worth, I think you handled it with more class than most would have." As I walked home, I realized how much had changed. I'd lost friends I thought would be in my life forever. I'd exposed a woman I once thought I'd marry. I'd become someone who stood up for himself, regardless of the consequences. It had cost me a lot, but as I unlocked the door to my apartment, now truly mine again, I knew I'd finally gained something more valuable: self-respect.